Welcome to Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. Each episode will tear down a myth, kick a social norm in the beanbag, gut punch a sex ed untruth, or destroy a poorly constructed relationship expectation. Get ready to unlearn all the crap you accepted as fact. Strap in for a mind-blowing revision on what sex is and what it can do. Prepare yourself for a whole new thought pattern when it comes to modern relationships. And now, here's your host, Jenny Simus, the Intimacy Ally, relationship expert and certified sex and intimacy coach.
Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. I am joined today by Kira Leigh, who is a tantrica, and I just cannot wait to explore this topic. I don't know too much about tantra, and so I love getting schooled on things that I don't know about yet. So Kira, I would love it if you could introduce yourself a little bit, and then I would love to hear why people come to you, what tantra can do for somebody who is experiencing, less than satisfactory in their relationship kind of sex lives.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. My name is Kira Leigh, and I am a tantrica in Texas. And people come to tantricas for a variety of reasons. Anything from couples that want to work with mismatched desire to people that really just want to have an experience of being pampered, being loved on, being supported in their bodies. So, one way to consider this is if you look at a spectrum of services, and maybe the tamer services that people are used to might be a psychologist, for example, or a massage therapist. That might be like a 0 on the scale, right? Versus a 10 on that sensuality scale. And it would probably be an escort, right? Someone who's offering sex right on the table, right? Versus
Right.
a tantrica is kind of in the middle. She or he floats in between those worlds and offers things like sensual touch, somatic body work, a lot of coaching in terms of how to connect with your body. And some of those services may be coaching in nature. Some of those services may be an experiential opportunity that has some more BDSM involved, or a sensual massage that includes edging and also teaches about PE or ED, or just better ways to work with your body, because Tantra is about, in its essence, at least in the way that a lot of tantrikas practice it here, is allowing you to connect with the body, connecting with the body, and being in a not just in a, when we think of yoga, we think of meditation, we think of connection and spirituality, which is beautiful. And Tantra is about those things, but it's about connecting that spirituality with an embodied experience of being present, being connected with our bodies, and then sharing that with another person.
Okay. All right. And see, I think that's a really important service that you provide for so many people, because in my experience with sex coaching, the biggest problem that people are facing is that disconnect, that being too stuck in their heads, or trying so hard to reach this certain goal that they think is the expectation, or the sexpectation, instead of being able to have an embodied experience, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And being able to have an atmosphere where you can come in and be able to be with a practitioner that is just going to love you exactly how you are, exactly how your body is that day, with no judgment, is great, because then you can take that practice home with you and support yourself in saying, "Hey, I can let go of some of the shame. I can let go of some of this self-doubt and allow myself to express, because I've had that embodied experience of what that might be like for me."
That sounds fantastic. So we've talked a little bit about how it's different than working with a traditional sex therapist or a counselor. What are some of the major issues that people come to you with? What comes to mind when you're like, oh yeah, this is what I do. This is my bread and butter.
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple topics that come to mind first. One is that people want to have some clients just want to have an experience. They want to be pampered. They want to be able to feel good in their bodies and have someone support that. So sometimes it's just a sensual massage and some edging and allowing that energy to move through the body, which is so good for stress relief, so good for self-expression. Others want to maybe have a role play or a fantasy that they've never been able to share. A lot of people come to me for pegging, for example, is a big one, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of men don't feel comfortable sharing that desire with others. And so being able to have that safe space to feel good in the body, to explore some of these fetishes or non-traditional practices. And then
Mm-hmm.
others come because they have, quote unquote, and I use quotes purposefully here, of a dysfunction. Maybe for women, that's just like, I'm not feeling safe in my body. I'm not feeling comfortable. I feel disconnected from my sexual energy. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes for men, that's things like, I don't feel like I have control over my ejaculation. Um,
Mm.
and and I want to be able to explore that. So those are probably the most common ones. But what is cool is that with the tantric session, we weave all of those together: experience and learning and fun.
Okay. Okay. Now, so I work with people who, run the gambit of, platonic touch to erotic touch and everywhere in between. Like I work with people who are, full on full service sex workers. And then also people who are like sex coaches, and then there's clinicians. Um, what is the biggest difference between like a tantric session that involves, let's say pegging or edging? And also, I'd love it if you would give a little insight and definition, because I feel like we're in this world and like sometimes we talk about things and people are like, what the hell is that? Um, and I haven't had like the queen of pegging on here yet or anything. I have my fingers crossed that I will. Um, but yeah, when you talk about doing tantric work, let's say for edging, what does that look like? What does that entail?
Yeah, such a good question. So, the first part of a session is bringing clients in and having a quick 10-15 minute conversation about intentions, about boundaries, about desires, about maybe how their body is functioning in the moment, and connecting in just with developing rapport and being able to say, okay, we're going to set society's expectations. We're going to even set your own expectations about orgasm and all of this aside so we can connect and have an experience together. So that little warm up, that connection exercise is really great for developing rapport, and is also something that they can take home and be like, oh, this is a way that I can communicate with my partner and bring some of these to the table. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is really focused on relaxation and opening the body, because your body is not going to function well if it's stressed and tight. So for most sessions, I have my clients starting on the belly, and I'll start with a 5 elements massage on their back. Anything from deep tissue massage, light hair along the body, sensual teasing, even blowing air along their bodies. Also doing some meditation, some breath work, introducing tantric elements like breath, sound, movement. Again, all practices that allow us to be embodied and present.
Mm-hmm.
And also include some teasing, some sensual teasing. And that allows the client to feel safe, to feel comfortable. And then when we're ready, we'll flip them over and continue with the next part of their session. For most individuals, that would be the edging practices. So that is when we're touching the whole body, massaging the whole body, including the genitals in that, and then using a arousal scale from 0 to 10 to move that energy up and bring it back down. Move that energy up,
Mm.
bring that back down. And what that does is it allows the body to release stress. It allows you to feel pleasure. And then also when we're talking about clients with, let's say, what we're talking about, premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction, it allows us to really understand where they're at in that arousal scale, and then give them natural um, embodiment practices to allow them to have better understanding and
Mm.
um, control isn't the right word I want to use, but more play with their arousal.
Mm.
And yeah, and then oftentimes that will include an orgasm or a release. And then we have some cuddle time, some debrief, and talk about what else they might like to explore or how they can take these practices home to continue on.
Wow, that is awesome. That is so freaking cool. Now, when you do this, can you do this like online in a way, or do you have to be in the room with the person?
It can be either. A lot of people will come to me because they can't get that anywhere else, right? Like they can't get that embodiment practice
Right?
from their normal, maybe a regular escort that they go to. So in person is more common. However, virtual is definitely an option because it's still practicing those skills
Hmm.
and leading through some of those techniques that we can do virtually as well.
Right. And I guess in the online realm or the virtual realm, like you're kind of teaching them more how to do it for themselves. And then like the practice is like doing more of that at home.
Correct. Versus in person, I would be the one that is leading the touch and also kind of directing the experience. Versus at
Mhm.
home, I may be directing it, but it's more of a meditative. Okay, now do this and feel your body, feel the breath as it enters your lungs, goes down your back, whatever it is. Like I'm kind of directing via meditative means.
Gotcha. Now, if you had to pick like a favorite couple of people to work with or favorite couple of issues that you just like you love sinking your teeth into and like, oh my gosh, this is what I really want to help people with. Do you have a couple in mind that you're like, yeah, I can't wait to help as many people as possible with this?
Yeah, I really love working with newbies. I think it's so fun for people that um haven't stepped their toes in really any of this. What is cool about what I offer is it's kind of quote unquote underground, right? And
Hmm.
so a lot of people come to me because they said I want to feel safe, but all of this is so crazy, and I also I do want the body experience versus just talking to a therapist. So I really love working with newbies, people that maybe are a little hesitant, a little nervous, people that want to try something new and have a bucket list thing like pegging or getting tied up and having sensation play on them.
Hmm.
And I also really love working with couples. I think it's so cool to see couples come into the office and be like, "Oh, wow. What
Hmm.
what training have you come into that has created this dynamic in a relationship?" And you can
Hmm.
see the love. You can see the love in with these couples. But it's like they're on this autopilot of cultural expectations on how they think they should be and show up for their partner, and being able to like take that, like really look that in the face and tear that apart and be like, this is the assumption that you're under, and this is a whole nother opportunity for you to step into in a new way of relating. Yeah, just a new ways of relating.
Wow, it just sounds like you're helping people like just redefine what is a fantastic sexual experience or a fantastic sensual experience even, you know?
Yes,
I love
and
that.
like you,
Ooh.
yeah, thank you. I love it too. And I think you do the same thing, right? Like you're a sex therapist, and the biggest thing that I think the first step in all of this is being able to say you are unique, you are normal, and period. Like you are unique and you are normal, and all of this other stuff, all of this other cultural programming, religious programming, articles about having to last 45 minutes to have great sex, um, does not matter. Like what matters is you and your body and your pleasure, and we
Right.
can set that aside, and that's what you do, right? That's the main point of this, and that's what I do, maybe in a more nonverbal way,
Right.
but it's still hugely part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I, I'm very interested in what like an exercise is that you would Like, what would you send someone home with? Or what would you try with someone who's having, and I hate using the terms. I
Yeah.
hate using the terms like delayed or eager ejaculation or whatever, because I
Yeah.
feel like it's different. Like, it's so different for everyone. And like that we have those terms, like it kind of like sets somebody up for failure, right? It's like a societal
Mm-hmm.
norm expectation of you're supposed to last this long, or you're supposed to finish in this amount of time, but I guess I am curious. What would you recommend if someone came to you for like issues with delayed ejaculation, saying like, I can do it just fine when I'm by myself, but when I'm with somebody else, I can't. What would you try to work on them with?
Yeah.
It's different for everyone, isn't it? Is it a hard
Y-
question?
uh,
Is it a weird
no,
question?
I think like you said, it's important to address that a lot of this stuff is in our heads. Like before we even get into specifics, people will come in and say, "Oh, you know, I have eager ejaculation," and I'm like, "Oh, what does that look like for you?" And they're like, "Well, I've been thrusting for 5 minutes straight, and then I have an orgasm." I'm like, you know what? That sounds like that's pretty normal. Like if I was doing the same thrusting for 5 minutes, I probably would have an orgasm. So,
Right?
um, people think these things, but really when you ask them like how does that compare, they're like, well, I think I should be 45 minutes. I'm like, there's no standard. So let's just put the standard out and say
Hmm.
there's no definition. The only thing that matters is that you want to last longer, or you want to be able to have an orgasm when you desire it. So let's just take the terminology out of this and say,
Yes.
what do you
Ooh,
care
I
about?
like that. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I like that. I think you hit the nail on the head. I want to have an orgasm when I desire it. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And
Okay. Okay.
now that we have that desire, the question is like how do we support that desire? So we're talking about you had the example of someone that says, "Oh, I can uh when we're talking about delayed ejaculation, for
Right. I
example,
can do it
you
just fine with myself and blah, blah,
uh,
blah. But when someone else is in the mix, I can't. Or I can't very quickly. And then they start to worry about the partner. But also I feel like in my business, when I have that interaction, like they're not talking to the partner about that. So that's like the first thing I
yes.
have to address.
Yes, yes, same thing. And that's where I start that conversation of saying, okay, your desire is you would like to have an orgasm when you choose to.
Hmm.
Um, and that you would like it to be earlier than your current arousal time of, let's say, 35, 40 minutes. And they're like, yeah, that sounds right. And I said, okay, now what does your partner want?
Hmm.
And then they'll say, well,
I'm not sure.
yeah. And I said, okay, well, let's have a conversation with her and see what she cares about. Maybe she doesn't even care about that. Maybe there's other ways to have great sex. So the first step is putting aside stereotypes, putting aside standards. The second step is being able to, if your body is going to be this way forever, how can you still have fun? And so
Mm,
that allows couples to kind of trick their minds into going, oh, what other ways can we have fun and play? And so for someone who has delayed orgasm, for example, that might mean, okay, we're going to have a lot of like foreplay and have lots of fun, and then I might masturbate on my own later. Like there's
mhm.
absolutely nothing wrong with that. um but that's less fun for people. They're like, oh, I really want to have an orgasm earlier. Okay,
Right,
so,
and then
so the,
and then if you find out that the other person does want that, then you're like, "Oh, okay, so then we do need to do something here."
yes, exactly. And so once we have that figured out, we say, okay, we've talked about ways that you can still have fun if this continues. um let's talk about some things that some strategies. One is, it's very common for people with this to, when you ask them about their masturbation practices, they'll say that they maybe watch porn for 30 minutes and they're using the same technique, the same
Mhm,
grip for that whole entire 30 minutes. And so I you look at that and say, okay, what you've essentially done is you've trained your brain to say that orgasm happens after 30 minutes of a very specific type of touch, which means that when you go to a different type of stimulation, a pussy or an anus, if you're, that, then
Hands that are not
hands,
yours, a mouth.
a
Yeah.
mouth, even someone else's hands, right? Exactly. Then your body isn't trained for that. So we start retraining your brain by using different techniques when you're masturbating, using
Mhm.
a sleeve, using like a sensual
Like a
sleeve,
pocket pussy or something like that. Yeah.
using a pocket pussy, using different types of touch, using different types of lube to get your body accustomed to that, and also practicing going from 0 to 10 very quickly, because a lot of people with delayed orgasm, they've trained their brain to go up and down, up and down, up and down, edging essentially. So
Mm.
whenever they get into that with their partner, their body's like, oh, we don't need to do this right now, we're going to keep going. So training that
Mm.
in your masturbation practices, lots of different types of touch, and going straight for that orgasm can help retrain your brain. That is one example.
Genius. Genius. I love it.
Yeah, I love that one too. And another one that is kind of goes along with that is when you're with your partner, when you kind of get the hang of that, of going quickly using different types of touch, you can include that with your partner. So you masturbate up until about an 8 or 9, right before you're about to have an orgasm, using those different types of touch. And then you penetrate your partner. Again, training your brain that this is what is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And then eventually the goal is that you can have that happen during like a partnered exchange without having that be there. But you've created like this wondrous variety for yourself. And so now you don't feel so rigid in your brain. Is that kind of like the point?
Yes, exactly. It's kind of confusing your brain that, like, hey, we can find pleasure in a lot of different ways. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the training the brain part, and then the other part is also training your body to relax, to open, and to let go of that mental fear and blockage. Because when we're constantly telling our bodies, have an orgasm, have an orgasm, have an orgasm, do you think that helps our body have an orgasm? Like,
Right.
it
It's like
doesn't.
somebody having a panic attack and another person yelling at them, stop it. Stop being afraid. Stop. It's like, that's not going to do anything.
Right, exactly. And that's where those tools of breathing, making sounds, moving your body. Do you know how many men come into sessions and they'll start actually like deep breathing into the chest, into the belly, into the genitals? They'll start making sounds, opening their mouths, and then when they let go of the sound, taking that deep breath. And then when you let go, a lot of men don't make sounds, but letting that air out, even that little bit of forcing that air out and making that sounds, it almost cuts that arousal. I've had clients that come in, their arousal's at a 6, and they start making sounds, their arousal's down to a 2 immediately, that quick, because men are accustomed to being tight, to being not making any sounds, and to making the same thrusting motion over and over. And
Mm.
what that does is it puts your body into that that tightness, and your body doesn't want to relax and work how it wants to function for pleasure. So
Mm.
even moving that body, moving your hips, men often do like a forward thrusting motion, moving your hips in circles and figure eights, allowing your body to shake, doing a little butt wiggle. All of those things can really help your body to relax into the present moment.
All right. I love it. I freaking love it. This is so good. Yay. I'm learning so much. I love to
Yes,
learn.
I love
I
it too.
love
Oh,
that you
one more
said,
thing.
the breathing
Yeah.
and the making sounds, like the sounds, like it's so important. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. And guys, like I know, well, hetero guys, I don't know, like if it's different, if you fall somewhere else on the sexuality spectrum, but the hetero guys that I have had talk to me about this, they're like, like they're like, almost stereotypical with it, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything is clenched, everything is tight,
Yeah.
hard, and you don't have like the ability to engage and release in the same way. You don't have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to receive those sensations if that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, think about professional athletes,
Hmm.
professional dancers. If you're on in the second row and you watch professional dancers, they're combining that breath, they're breathing in, and as they move, they make sounds. You can hear them if you're in the second row.
Hmm.
And they combine that. Same with professional tennis players. They're often making those sounds as they swing. And the reason that they do that is because it allows for the maximum amount of force or without with a little amount of effort, with a lots of with as much ease as you can, given that situation. And so it combines that ability to be alert, to be present, to be focused, while also having relaxation. And like that's what we want, is to feel alive in the moment,
Hmm.
not to feel like stuck and in that.
Wow, fantastic. Now, is it basically the same thing that you would address for, females that come in to see you, vulva havers that are like not able to climax or have never climaxed? What do you go through kind of like similar exercises, or is there something a little different there?
Yeah, good question. So, for women or female bodied people, generally the first step is feeling comfortable both emotionally and physically.
Mm,
So, you're familiar with the brakes and the accelerators, the things that really stop you from
yes.
feeling into your body, and the things that really accelerate you. And for a lot of female body people, there's a lot of brakes when it comes to safety, and being able to feel into their own pleasure, because culturally, one of the big things that women are taught is like the only way that you can have pleasure is if you're giving pleasure to a man.
Oh, and that you can only have it from being, penetrated,
Yeah.
or that if you can't find pleasure from being penetrated, something is wrong with you, uh,
Mhm.
or that you are not sexy by society's terms, and so
Mhm.
therefore you are not, because you are only viewed through the lens of others. And God, there's
Yeah.
so much. There's
So much of that. And
so much.
so generally the first step is we'll have like a 1 or 2 hour conversation about how are you? What is your body? What is alive for you now? What are your some
Mhm,
of your past experiences that some people at times people just need to talk, and this is the same for men too, just talk about their past experiences, their traumas, feel that they can be heard. And then the
mm,
next part is oftentimes connecting. What I'll do is connect with each of the chakras. We'll like sit and we'll meditate into the heart, into the pussy, and ask, and like,
mhm,
what does your pussy need right now in this moment? What is
mhm,
she trying to tell you? And being able to just energetically have my hand just resting on top, not pressing, not wanting anything, not needing
mhm,
anything from her, but just allowing to be in that present moment, will often
mhm.
allow those emotions to come up and to be heard. And again, I think, for people that are listening to this, a big takeaway here is for anyone that you're working with is to be able to be present without pushing for something, for without pushing for sex or for needing anything in return, but just being with the body. So many
Mhm.
women and men even have had experiences of people coming onto them when they're did not want that or were not ready. And to be able to just be present with someone and allow their body to unfold naturally to whatever level of extent feels comfortable to them and no further, that is what people need to feel
Yeah.
safe in exploring. And that is the first step for a lot of clients, is to feel that
And it's
safety.
missing. It's missing. Like, this is like when people talk to me about, sex ed doesn't belong in schools, and, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, it sucks. Like, what they do get sucks. It's all about like pregnancy prevention and STI prevention. It doesn't cover any of the emotional support, and it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
cover any of the, sensate focus support.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to be able to hold space for each other. You need to be able to hold space for yourself first, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And be able to say, like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and this is what I'm up for right now. And I don't always have to be up for that. My consent changes like minute to minute,
Yes.
and that's how it should be, and that's how it should be allowed to be. And I feel like there's so much expectation and coercion that
Mm-hmm.
happens. And, sometimes the people who are coercing don't even know that they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like they're just on a mission for their want and mistaking someone else's willingness as their want as well. And it
Mm-hmm.
gets to the point where the other person is just kind of like going along with it as opposed to actually wanting to participate because we don't teach it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and that's why what you're doing is so horribly necessary. Like it really
Mm-hmm.
is. I hope you
Oh,
know that.
yeah.
Um,
Thank
there need
you.
to be more of you.
Thank you. I love what I do. And I think what
Ugh.
you're mentioning is that piece about, there's so many of those tiny moments where we overstep our own boundaries or the boundary of someone else. And the key here is to go so slow.
Mhm.
Slow it down when you're connecting with someone else. Check in with them non-verbally and verbally. See how their body is. If things are are a little bit different, ask them, hey, I noticed a change in your facial expression, or I noticed that you're pulling away right now. How are you
I noticed you're not
feeling?
moving. I noticed you're not
Yeah.
moaning. Yeah.
Yeah, and checking in. And the other thing is having that practice, part of the checking in with the chakras and the body is seeing like what do I need to feel safe, to feel comfortable, what are my desires, and then being able to communicate that. Part of probably what you do is talking about a safer connections elevator speech is what we call it, which is STIs and what you want, what you don't want, things that you're available for, not available for. And my favorite, and this is something that I tend to give to women a lot, is there's nothing wrong with telling a partner in advance, hey, I really want to be sensual with you. But the only way that's going to happen is if I know that you will not pressure me into having sex. And if I do feel that from you, then I will leave.
Mm,
I've
mm,
said that to partners before. Hey, I'm open to sex with you. Like but I don't know how I'm going to feel in the moment, and I don't want that pressure. I just want to have sensual time and see where it goes, and I
mhm,
don't want to feel that pressure from you. So, if you feel that you can be capable of that, and being turned on, and maybe it not going that direction, then
mhm.
let's connect. And that is bold, but that is something that I needed to feel safe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've heard women in like their 50s or 60s, like actually at least two in their 70s, talk to me about how much sex they've had searching for intimate connection. And
Mm-hmm.
then like realizing at 50, 60, 70 years old, holy shit, like I had all this sex thinking that was the only way that I could get to that. And
Mm,
it's not. I can ask for exactly what I want and I don't have to give anything that I don't want to. It's
mm-hmm.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to see that realization and that empowerment and understanding that I can have a sensual experience or an intimate experience that has nothing to do with sex.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
that shit's magic.
Exactly.
Oh, well, Kira, I don't want to keep you too long today. I'd love to know, is there anything that you want to tell people listening? Like, if there's something like burning in your head, like, oh my God, I have to tell you this before I get off of this call. And I am going to ask you to come back on here. So I hope you know that.
Yay! I could talk. I mean, there's so many more things I could share about all of these things. Um, yeah, I say the biggest thing that has helped not only me and my partner, but also my clients is the concept of putting something on the shelf. Whether that is sex, whether that is penetration, whether that is performance anxiety for men or women. If you have something that's in your mind that's preventing you from being present in a experience with someone,
Hmm.
just have a conversation and say, hey, this is feeling difficult for me and I have a lot of anxiety around this. Can we just put this on the shelf? And then if I feel comfortable with this, I can bring it up and maybe we can move into that space. Um, and that to me has been so great. For me, that example is penetration and orgasm with my partner. I say, hey, let's put it on the shelf. When I'm ready, I'll let you know. And a lot of times we won't go into that space. Sometimes we will. And it just offers so much freedom. And for him, being able to have orgasm for himself on the shelf has been great, because we can have sex and not have orgasm. We can have sensual play and not ever have penetration. And that freedom to connect with your partner in an intimate and embodied way, that's what we all are searching for in sex, in the act of sex. So if we can find that in other ways, and that's a technique that I use to do that, then that's the freedom that I want for everyone. So, yeah.
All right. I can dig it. Oh, well, Kira, this has been lovely. I will have a couple of links, at least one link, I believe, in the show notes about how you might be able to get in touch with Kira. You can also email me at theintimacyally@gmail.com if you would like to submit questions for her. That way, she can be a little ready for the next time she comes on with what you're dying to know. And so thank you so much for coming on. I hope you'll come back.
Yes, thank you so much. I had such a good time. Just to mention that I'm really only taking referrals right now, so they can either contact you or they can contact Krista Tantric. She's a coworker of mine, more in the coaching space, that can provide a referral. So, and also has the PDF that you can attach as well for extra resources. But yeah, this has been wonderful. I would love to come back on again, and thank you so much for the work you're doing and for having me on.
Yay! All right, my lovelies. That's going to be it for Story Time with the Intimacy Ally today. Remember to be kind, stay curious, get your hell no's and your fuck yes in check. Bye!
Thank you for tuning in to Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. We hope you learned a bit more about putting the fire back in your romantic relationships, exploring communication and emotional readiness in all relationships, and how to expand your definition of intimacy so you can reach your relationship goals. Go to theintimacyally.com to subscribe and never miss an episode. Follow the links in the show notes to social media and events. Till next time, keep on learning, growing, and thinking. Storytime with the Intimacy Ally podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as health or mental health advice.